My name is Marcus Chatfield. I'm here with my colleague Donovan Carter. Today's February 23rd, 2022, and we are here at Ocamic interviewing Dr. Ed Poppell. And I wonder if we could begin, if you could describe your educational and professional background and some of your past positions before you came to Ocamic, or came to work at Ocamic.
Okay. My undergraduate is from Florida State University, a little school up in Tallahassee. I came to Gainesville. I had a job during the height of the Vietnam War, and I was running from being drafted and had lost my student status because I had graduated, and so I got a job at UF. Planned to stay here 6 months, started graduate school, got a graduate degree, got a couple of promotions, and I remained in Gainesville for the last 50 years. So that is my career. At UF, it was basically, I started as a financial aid counselor, collecting delinquent student loans. And I ended my career as Vice President of Finance and Administration. So I have no complaints. I had a very successful career. I retired, partially retired in 2011, and continued to work at the university some in St. Augustine. And I also helped create Innovation Square, where the old Alachua General was. I also started the DSO in St. Augustine to preserve and protect all the historic state properties there. We've created a documentary film that was shown on PBS, and it's now been reinterpreted and shown nationwide and worldwide. I thought I was on my way to retirement, and Ocamic gave me a call to be their interim CEO while they were searching for a new CEO. And so that's what brought me back to Ocamic. I had previously been on the board of directors for a number of years, and also the the chairman of the board for at least 2 times.
And so how did the idea for Ocamic originate?
There was a gentleman named Frank Duckworth. I'm sure you've heard the name before from other interviewees, who approached Dr. John Lombardi, who was president of UF at the time, with a novel concept. It wasn't what I would call a new concept. It was just a novel concept to create a retirement community and align it with the university, so people who wanted to continue education, athletics, arts, social activities with the university would find a retirement community that enjoyed the benefits of a large university like UF. And Dr. Lombardi thought it was a wonderful idea, and if you got to work and know him when he determined it was a good idea, it became reality. And that, in a nutshell, is how Ocamic happened.
Wow. So the idea of a university being affiliated with a retirement community, had you heard of that before, or how did that? What was the appeal in that idea?
Well, there were a couple of appeals to the idea. Most of us, had never heard of a continuous care retirement community. that was a new concept to put the continuum of life care in one place, that you entered at whatever stage in life you were, and it took you to the end, including the burial of your pet or the care of your pets. It just took care of everything for you. You knew that your family did not have to worry after that. And that attraction was great. The second attraction would be for the university to bring back its old alumni, its old friends who had tremendous resources, and to keep them engaged with the university for the obvious reasons. But I think the greatness of Ocamic has proven to be the quality of life here, the activity it brings, the learning institute they created here. It's just wonderful. It keeps the people here engaged, active, included. Every day is something new for them. I mean, if you spend any time over here, it's an amazing place. And you would never know that some of these people are 90, 92, 93 years old, and they're as sharp as a 60-year-old, a 50-year-old. And it's a wonderful atmosphere over here, exciting atmosphere. So all of those things put together prove that Dr. Duckworth, had a good concept, a good idea. And with Dr. Lombardi and others who pushed it, it opened in 2004. It's now 17 years, I think. Great success. It's been copied a number of places and continues to grow and thrive.
Yeah, it is really inspiring. So it sounds like you were on the original board of directors, and then you came back to be CEO. So first, when you were part of the initial founding group of directors, what was it like working with them, and what was your role?
I was not part of the founding group, the board of directors. At the time we were doing this, I was the vice president of finance and administration. So I was kind of back helping, watching. This is a standalone 501c3 corporate entity. It is not part of the University of Florida. It carries the UF name, and it is affiliated, but it is not what in the accounting world called a component unit of the University of Florida. The University of Florida is not responsible for it, does not take any liability for it, but we are closely aligned because 1/3 of the board of directors is appointed by the president of the university. 1/3 are alumni members, and 1/3 are community members. So there's no group that really has control of Ocamic. It is a community resource, but aligned with the University of Florida. That's somewhat unique. Many universities who have duplicated this take ownership of it. UF never did. And so it's kept the members here as stakeholders. They feel like they own it, that they direct it, and they have a lot to do with how it's governed. And that is critical. It is their Ocamic. It's not UF's Ocamic. But I was not part of the original group, but from the university perspective, I helped guide it. It was only a couple of years later that Dr. Matchin appointed me to the board when he became president. And I was on the board that kind of directed how it would eventually be organized, controlled in its formation. And then a number of years went by, and I came back at their request to be their CEO.
And how long were you the CEO?
6 or 8 months until they did a search and filled the position.
And what was that like for you?
It was interesting to see it from the other side of the table. I had been on the board of directors. I had been chairman of the board of directors. And then to be the CEO, to understand both hats, was very interesting, challenging, and eye-opening.
What were some of the challenges?
I think the greatest challenge here is that the basic person who lives at Ocamic is a very successful, very well educated, a very attuned individual, and also very demanding. They expect perfection in everything that's done. They're on top of finances. They're on top of what they eat, their environment, and they let you know. They're not shy people, and they assume they are stakeholders. They are the owners of Ocamic, and so they're not shy about bringing their requests, their needs, their expectations to you. And so it's a very challenging job. Every day there's something new. And so seeing it from that side was very interesting, but also it was very invigorating because they are so engaged.
So you mentioned that there's a real strong sense of ownership. The residents and the directors, they are the stakeholders. But the university provides, I'm wondering about the relationship between the university and Ocamic. What makes that so special and successful?
Well, it's a give and take. We have a group of, let's call it 500 individuals over here who their average age is a little over 80, but you've got 68-year-olds and 98-year-olds. And it is a microcosm right here of the world in this place. And so the university is very interested in studying aging. Research over here is just, the potentials are unlimited. Like during COVID, for example, Ocamic was only one of a handful of retirement communities who participated with the CDC in what they call the citrus study. It tracked who had COVID. They did tests over here every 2 weeks of 150 of the 300 independent living residents and tracked. They did blood tests once a month to see who had COVID or who had the antigens. So they do major research over here. The university loves that. It is a living laboratory of potential. And then the residents over here, the other side, they love to go to UF athletic events. They love to go to the Harn. They love to go to football games. They give more volunteer hours over here to UF just to be engaged. And the professors love to come over here and lecture on current events, on stuff. It's just unlimited, the give and take that Ocamic. And if you look at who's over here and their wealth, they've been very, very generous to UF. So there's a really cooperative partnership here of what UF gives to them, but what they give to UF.
And originally, was that partnership clear from the beginning what the roles would be?
I don't know that anything like that is so clearly articulated. I think there was that vision And that vision has been more than realized.
And have you heard of how this university model, university support with this CCRC, have you heard how it's worked in other locations? Or how it compares to Ocamic?
I think there's that common statement, if you've seen one CCRC, you've seen one CCRC. They're all different. They're all unique. They all create their own special way. Most CCRCs nationwide are part of a big corporate entity of 20, 30, 50. And they're owned by the Presbyterian Church or the Lutheran Church or some big healthcare organization. And so they're more cookie cutter. They're, expected to make money. And they all have the rules. And the residents don't have the ownership. They don't have the input. They don't have the guidance from the residents that Ocamic. That's the uniqueness here. It is Ocamic. It does not answer to anyone else. You answer to the residents here, and they're in charge. And they'll remind you of that. This is their place. That is the uniqueness of Ocamic. It's hard to explain to someone that uniqueness until they have lived it. It's hard to explain to a new CEO who comes from that private sector governance model to understand what they're going to see here.
And so, in your role as on the board of directors, were you in charge of finance? What was your...
I mean, the board of directors had the fiduciary responsibility, the stewardship responsibility to keep the enterprise running, to keep it safe, abide by all Florida laws, Medicare laws, that type thing. And so your board had your typical responsibilities, primarily financial health. But then, keeping a CEO, keeping the facilities up and running, sustainability of the enterprise. Yeah, that's what we did. And it was the board's responsibility. Like I say, there was no backstop from UF. There was no, safety net from some other larger corporate entity. It is the 501c3 Ocamic Inc. bought the land. They own the land. They pay the taxes. It's all Ocamic.
Well, that kind of corrects a misunderstanding I had. I thought UF support and the security was the university backing. So I didn't understand that.
Contractually, organizationally, there's nothing that would obligate UF to support Ocamec. Now, would UF step forward if something happened here catastrophically and say, I will loan you some money, or I will step in and give, or, legally could they? I don't know. They do not. There was a pretty heavy firewall built, because to open this, it cost about $125 million to open this place. And UF said, this is not our core mission to provide a retirement home for 500 people. So you got to do it on your own. What UF did do in the beginning, the one small piece of help they gave Ocamic was they put down $5 million in a trust account that said if Ocamic needs help making its mortgage payment early on, you can draw on this. Or if they need money for operations, here's another $5 million that they can draw on. That evaporated. I think after 5 years, it went away. They never drew any. They never gave them a penny. But there was that initial, if you need it, you can ask. But they never asked. They never needed it. And so that doesn't exist today.
Yeah, so they didn't need it because the model was so successful, the selling points were so successful. So, and you mentioned the appeal of the CCRC and the Institute for Learning and Retirement. Is there anything else that makes this such a successful model?
Well, here again, I think that the alignment with UF is a huge, huge selling point. That is something unique, while others have it not to this degree. It's hard to undersell that. The other thing is, it is unique in itself that the CCRC is a heavy, heavy investment by the resident to come here. I mean, it's not inexpensive, and the maintenance fees are not inexpensive. So the commitment to come here is a big one, huge. And so the people who are here are committed. They are all in. They've done their research. They've looked at CCRCs nationwide. And if you look at who's here, a third of them are from Gainesville, the Gainesville area. A third of them are from the region, probably in Florida, a 25 county area kind of thing, 30 county area. And a third are from who knows where, all over the nation. That melting pot of people who all found this to be what they wanted is quite the together group. They understand what they are buying and what their expectations are.
Yeah. In some of the interviews we've done, people have really emphasized that the continuous care retirement community model just provides such a sense of security, because when you have health needs, you can receive them without having to move somewhere else for an extended period of time and then coming back, so just less disruptive. Is there anything else specific about the CCRC model that you see as particularly beneficial?
Well, I am on the waiting list for here when I eventually get to that point. I think I need to move here. And the one thing people tell you is don't wait too long. It's kind of like limping around with a sore leg. Why did you wait that long to get the operation? And you only realize that after you've had the operation. Said, why did I do that? I've been limping around hurting. And so a lot of us stay in our homes because that's comfortable. There's nothing worse than having to give away all your collections, your possessions, and move into something smaller. And so it is a relief to be a part of this, because I only have one child, and the responsibility of that child to take care of me and my wife is a huge responsibility, and he doesn't live here. To know that I'm going to come here and move into an independent living, and as I progress through that continuum of health needs, he's not going to have to worry about Where can I find a skilled nursing bed? Where can I find a rehab bed? He broke his hip, you know. I lost my memory and I needed memory care. He doesn't have to worry about that. I just go through that continuum of needs. And I think that peace of mind that a lot of people find here is very important. Something you don't really think about. You say, well, I'm going to be okay, and just one day I'll pass along. It doesn't happen that way. You cannot predict that what's going to be in front of you. And I just went through it with my mother, and it's difficult. You know, one day she's living alone, doing well. The next day, I'm looking for assisted living. And it's all over the board out there. And you're looking for quality here. This is the #1 rehab skilled nursing facility in the community. When people have an operation or need some type speech therapy, physical therapy, they come here, stay 30 days, and it's good stuff. And so you're looking for peace of mind for you and your family.
Do you have any questions, Donovan?
Sure. So earlier you mentioned kind of the different roles of the board of as chairman of the board of directors and also as interim CEO. Could you talk more about how kind of your education and your occupation before that really prepared you for those things?
Oh, that's a good question. You know, why was I put on the board? Why have I been involved in this? Primarily because I had a business background. Primarily because I had an accounting background. I was an accountant. And I had a finance background. So money, finances, sustainability, and financial health are always probably the #1 concern. So my background for 40 years at the university was budgeting, finance, accounting, physical plant. I was responsible for the entire campus, all the buildings, security, environmental health and safety, finance, accounting, investments, personnel, computing. I had it all. So it was a natural to come here because I understood the business aspects, how to run an organization, how to keep it financially healthy. They were going through a refinance here of their bonds, those kind of things. I had that experience. That's primarily it. Leadership.
Nice, thank you. I wanted to ask about kind of COVID as well. So with the kind of height of the pandemic, kind of like in the year 2020 and even some of last year, 2021, what would you say the effects of that has been on like the business side of Ocamic rather than even more than what would you say that the impacts of COVID are on like the business side of things, especially in such a with the virus that it's a vulnerable community lives here. So
I'll make an interesting statement here. Mm-hmm. If I had known, I came in May of 2021 to be the interim CEO. The COVID Delta variant was just starting. It hadn't really manifested itself yet because, that happened quickly. If I had known what I know today, I would never have agreed to come over here because COVID had no playbook. there was no rules. There were nobody. You couldn't walk up to somebody, the most experienced administrator, and say, "What do I do?" They would look at you and say, "I don't know. This game is different than I have ever experienced." Here you have a very vulnerable population. Scary. You have an outbreak here. It could be a wildfire. You just didn't know. If I had known, late in your career, you don't go doing things that just, leave such a scar on you that if somebody had passed away over here because of COVID, us doing something stupid or we didn't know what to do, I could have never forgiven myself. That would have just been. So I was not worried about the financing. I wasn't worried about the business. When I got here and all of a sudden we had the Delta variant, I said, oh, I had not counted on this. We started having to put signs out here that, we've got 5 cases, we're in orange. Then we got 7 cases, we're in red. How do we, putting the mask back on, requiring all our employees to be vaccinated? That was a huge deal. That is what changed the whole outlook on how do you manage an enterprise. When you don't have a playbook, you can't fall back on what you had always done in stressful circumstances. It was every day you show up and say, who's at work today? Do we have enough waiters in the dining room? Do we have enough housekeepers? No, we've had 6 people call in. We can't, those kind of things are even going on today. You go to your most popular restaurant and say, why is the food taking so long? Well, the cook didn't show up. That is what was COVID, 101, running an enterprise when you didn't have control. COVID had control. And you were worried more about the health and welfare of your residents than anything. You kind of forgot that the roof was leaking.
And how did the residents respond to the regular testing and any, requirements, restrictions?
Let's go back to, you had a very well-educated populace over here, up to date on current events. They were fully engaged, fully understanding. When I announced we're going to require vaccinations for all our employees, because there were only 3 residents who were not vaccinated, and those 3 were because of medical reasons. Okay, so we had a 99.99%, but not the same in the employees. And they're the ones going home every night, going to Walmart, going to, movies, and bringing back. And I said, we got to stop that. They loved it. They understood it. They got it. They were all in. It was the employees that said, whoa, I said, well, this is the way. We got a vulnerable population. Well, I cannot put them at risk. And that was during the time nobody had made those type decisions yet. And then people started making, particularly the hospitals. See, we have a small hospital over there. 150 people in assisted living and skilled nursing. So it was tough. It was hard. It's still tough, still hard. I think they just reopened the dining rooms again from the latest variant. That was scary. I'll admit, of all the things I've done in my career, that one got my attention.
Well, some of the residents we've interviewed have spoken to how remarkably successful and how impressed they were with how the administration handled COVID. So it seems like you did a great job.
It depends on how you measure it. It depends on who you talk to. In my 50-year career, Leadership is not a popularity contest.
So you mentioned it was different for the staff, and that's one thing we haven't discussed much in our interviews is what it is like working with the staff here, and what's the turnover rate, any special relationships between Ocamic and the staff members?
There's an axiom when you look at the specialty of services that are provided here, is you can't go by that training, that education, because it's heart that makes you do your job good here. You need training, you need education, you need experience, but if you don't have the heart, when you're taking care, health and aging, or aging in particular, is the great equalizer. I don't care who you are. Once your health is gone, you're all equal. You're all laying in the same bed, suffering the same, challenges, trying to survive. And the people who take care of them are special. You can't go train them to be that way. They have to want to be that way. And you go over there and spend a day with, maybe you have a relative who's not doing well right now. That is hard work, to take care of somebody who can't take care of themselves. And they used to be somebody. They were the best car mechanic in the world, or the best airline pilot, and today they don't remember any of that. And taking care of them is a blessing. Some people know how to do that. When you find those people, you hire them. When you see how they do it, you keep them. It's not for everybody. It is a specialty. It's a talent that, like I say, God-given talent to take care of others. And that's what this place has, is that collection of people who want to do that type thing. And you can pick out the ones that don't know how to do it, just don't have that gift, and not everybody's perfect, but that's the one thing that I recognized when I was here. You didn't get that close when you're on the board of directors, but when you're CEO, you had the chance to see how people took care of other people, and the staff are the key over here.
Well, that's really remarkable. In some of the interviews, several people have emphasized that the best thing is the people, and I just always assumed they were just talking about the residents, but it makes me realize that there's a whole...
They got about 375 employees here to keep this place going. And if you look at that, it's 7 days a week. There are no holidays here. It's not far from a one-to-one relationship. But when you talk about the people out at the security house that you have to come through, during COVID, that was a big deal, screening people to keep people out. The vendors, the FedEx, all of those saying, I need to get in. Well, slow down. Let's take your temperature. You fill out this questionnaire. All of those things were new. It took staff. We had to deliver all the meals during COVID. Our people had to come pick them up. The mistakes you make when you start putting, I ordered carrots, not, I'm sorry. That kind of thing. It was staff that said, I got to do this better. The way I did it yesterday is not the way I'm going to do it today. The housekeeper who knocks on the door and says, I'm ready to clean your apartment. And they say, no, don't come in. I got, possibly exposed yesterday, and vice versa. Just a lot of respect for each other, a lot of, how can we get through this?
And so the group events shifted to more online events, I'm assuming. And I wonder, were there like, resident discussion groups keeping up with the medical science and keeping up to date with the latest developments?
Well, you're touching on one of the things that has happened worldwide, but also when you're this close to the microcosm we talked about before, isolation. COVID created so much isolation, and we couldn't allow the people in independent living to go freely over to assisted living and see their friends. Isolation. And all of a sudden you had people staying in their apartments, on TV, on Zoom. We created this new environment of how people associated with each other. And it was isolation. They didn't eat together. They didn't go to events together. They saw them on TV. And that's not a replacement. It doesn't work. When I came, they were just coming out of that. And in that first couple of weeks of May and June, so we got to get these people back together again. We had to do things that brought them out. We opened the restaurants back, but they were still picking up their food. They got comfortable. They stayed in their PJs all day. I mean, that's an over-exaggeration, but that it just got easy. I mean, in assisted living, we started offering happy hours. Come out and have a drink. And it brings them back out. That was the biggest thing I saw, that this was the biggest socialization. That's why they came here, to be with friends and have new friends and have things and activities. That was cut off in just a day. And it took a while to regrow it. And then they took it away again. Now you got to regrow it again. That was what I witnessed as one of the biggest challenges, how to get people. But it left some scars. People saw what isolation felt like, and they don't like it. And they don't want to go there. The continuum we talk about, you come in at independent living, you go to assisted living, you may go to memory, you may go to skilled nursing. That is the continuum you move through. They now want to stay in independent living. They saw what isolation and assisted living looked like. They don't want to go there. And we've got to break those barriers back down, that it's okay. It is good. It does work. The care is just, more care, not less. More interaction, not less. But that's happened, worldwide isolation.
Yeah, I'm just trying to imagine what it would have been like. You said if you had known Delta was coming around the corner, you wouldn't have taken it on. I'm trying to imagine. So did you have medical specialists on your who were you turning to for advice?
Here again, let's go back to UF. That health center over there is an amazing place. And having worked there as long as I did, I knew most everybody. And so someone, I'll call her name, you probably never heard of her, Cindy Prinz, infectious disease control expert who was helping everyone. Cindy, what do you think? We had a lot of help. Plus, we had a young lady, Elaine, over in skilled nursing, who was just basically a licensed nurse, who became our infectious control czar on campus. And she just thrived in that position and still is thriving. And everybody began to rely on her. And she stayed up to date on the science and served us well. She was a lifesaver.
So again, it was the UF resources and that relationship that was really helpful.
Yep.
I just have one last question. Do you have any other questions, Donovan? I'm just curious if there's anything about that you wish was different in developing or in your role as administrator, on the board or during the CEO. Your position as CEO, I'm sure, was dominated by COVID, but I'm wondering, is there anything you wish was different or that you would do differently that would have made it even better? I mean, it's such a successful model that I'm hesitant to ask, but is there anything that you wish you had done differently?
There are 100 things I would do different, and then there's really nothing I would do different. I mean, you can look back and say, why do we build this room with all these windows in it? Nobody likes to use it because you're in a fishbowl. How important is that? Those kind of things. You know, this carpet is awful because when you do a little research on aging, as your eyes age, you don't like busy things. It causes you to see that you don't know what elevations are when you see that busyness in this carpet. Now, why did we put this busy carpet in here? It looked good. We were not thinking about what an 85-year-old set of eyes, how that looks to them. Those are the kind of things that I think that I look around at the design of the facility. It wasn't as much about aging as it was a beautiful building. It was a stately southern red brick, columns out front, drive up, those kind of things. I would have designed it a little bit better. I would have asked people, gerontologists or whoever they are, a little bit better design. I wish it didn't cost as much. It's rather expensive. I shouldn't go here, but I will. I wish there were more diversity here. The economics somehow create the lack of diversity. That I don't like that. Don't know how to solve it, but I recognize it. Things like that. But overall, no, I don't think, it would change anything.
Do you think that the CCRC model could work on a different scale, a different economic scale, and perhaps without university support?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's one of the things that is a challenge here is the economies of scale work here like they do everywhere else in the world. The bigger you get, the cheaper it gets. The less quality comes with that. Some of the specialty uniqueness here goes away. But we could build an independent assisted living facility here and make a lot of money. We could build another independent skilled nursing and make a lot of money. But we would start to lose the independence, the engagement. There must be 10 or 15 subcommittees suggesting how this place should be run. That is a daily activity for a lot of residents here. They're in a leadership position. That's what they've done all their life. They feel comfortable telling the CEO how to do it. But that's activity for them. That's fun for them. That's saying, I still have importance in my life. So this living laboratory that we have going on here is the microcosm. They're still actively engaged. So when when they don't have that input, there are 13 committees that just went away, 13 times 5 or 10 on each. You know, there's a decoration committee, there's a furniture committee, there's a lighting committee, there's a landscape committee. They're all doing their stuff here. And that's important. I mean, they're arguing over the size of shrimp we're going to serve. That is important. It is. I mean, I'm not making light of it. That is, as you age, those kind of things get really big in your life.
Yeah.
Because you've had so much other things taken away, you go to the things that are in front of you, you know. I can't believe they're going to change that menu. One of the biggest things I had over here, this is funny. I said, our menu's too big. It costs too much money for our waiters, waitresses, our cooks. We had 16 salad dressings. You can't name 10 salad dressings. We had 16 on the menu. That was a big deal. You talking about people wanting... I was going to take 16 down to 12. Blood orange vinaigrette. You ever had it? Didn't know it existed. Yeah.
That is really funny. Is there anything else that is important to you about your relationship with Ocamic that we didn't discuss?
I think there's one thing. There's a humanistic component of why I did what I did, came back over here. My mother passed away right in the middle of COVID. In fact, we spent the last, from February to May when COVID first came. What was that, 2020? Mm-hmm. When they first said there's this thing, COVID-19. My mother was in a skilled nursing facility in Tallahassee. I didn't get to see her until the day before she died because COVID isolated everybody. And hospice called me and said, your mother is, I use this word, transitioning. It's still one of the most unique words. Weird. She's transitioning. But that was their way of saying she's starting to die. And so they were right. The next day she passed away. But I was allowed in to see her for a couple of hours. She never was awake. Something said, if I ever have a chance to make things better for people in her situation, do it. That was just one of those things. And when I got that call, and I've only told a few people this, I said, wow, who would have ever thought somebody would call me and say, would you want to be CEO of a retirement community? So I'll let y'all think through, where did that message come from? And so it was my sole desire when I arrived here on May 14th to see if I could make a difference for some of those people over in skilled nursing, over in the health pavilion, that I can make it better for them and everybody else, but specifically thinking of my mother and what I saw there that I didn't like, but nothing I could do about it. Then I was put in a position to make a difference. And did I? That's something you would have never asked me, but that's something that was important to me.
Thank you for sharing that.
So, yeah. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, do you have any? I think if there's nothing else, then I think we're all done. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Nice meeting y'all.
You as well.